Hello, this is I Do Damage, and welcome back to the channel. In this Eternal Edge Plus video, I want to talk about this indie Zelda-like RPG game that I've had some time playing, and I just want to share my thoughts on you and if I think it's worth your time and money. First thing you should know about the game is it is on Steam for a price tag of $14.99. Let's go ahead and just jump right in and talk about the game, man. First things first, the game was originally on Nintendo Switch back in 2018. It's been ported over to Steam, as I said, in a Plus edition. It's been enhanced, upgraded, and just loads more better than Switch. That's what they've aimed for anyway. And I think they've done an okay job. I did play the closed beta several months back, and a lot of bugs have been fixed since then, which is really awesome. There were some game-breaking bugs, but I'm happy to say those are not there anymore. So it's great to see that they've came so far. There are still some things that I'd like to see improved with the game as well, mostly quality of life features. But before I start to ramble too much, let's just go ahead and talk about the world in Eternal Edge. The world itself is very Zelda-like. The very last Zelda game I ever played was on Super Nintendo. Okay, I didn't play Breath of the Wild, but from what my viewers and everyone that has been watching me play the game has told me is it looks just like Breath of the Wild, like an exact clone, and I'm going to take their word for it. There are certain dungeons you can find. The world itself is an open world. I mean, it's a full world that you can go and explore. It's broken up by level ranges. There are, as I said, there's dungeons. There's also events that you can go do. They're indicated by a blue pillar of light in the sky. And if you go to that location, there's going to be an event. These events, I believe, are static. And once you've completed it one time, it's done. You can't just grind it over and over for XP like I was kind of hoping for. But the world itself is really interesting, and I was always looking forward to the next zone, the next monster, the next event, the next quest, the next character that I'd meet. And I guess since we're kind of talking about characters briefly, I'll just kind of touch on the story. I'm not a huge lore dude, but the story did seem pretty basic. Basically, you're trying to save some girl from the corruption of the Skeleton King, and to do that, there are certain missions that you must accomplish. So it's nothing too advanced. It was interesting though. I was excited to see what the next dungeon, the next boss, and ultimately to see how it would all pan out. So that is pretty much world. The next thing I want to talk about is character progression. In ARPGs, progression is probably the second most important thing, right behind combat. So that's what I want to talk about is progression and how to make your character stronger. The game has a couple different avenues for making your character stronger. The first is these eternal essences. I'm not sure, I think this is where the game got its name from, probably. But basically, eternal essences are these hidden essences you can find out in the world. They're in static locations, but they are pretty well hidden, I would say. Basically, once you have found one essence, you can then take it to the bonfire and use it to enhance one of your stats. It's consumed on use. I don't think you can respec those stats either. I think there's something like 5 different stats you can pick from, ranging from health, damage, movement speed, crit chance, and I think technique damage, which is like your bow and arrows, skills like that. So there's a little bit of options there. But what's more exciting to me is kind of the loot and itemization and leveling up, okay? It's one of those games where you really are going to have to grind quite a bit of XP if you want to be able to level up and do the higher zones and get higher and stronger. There's quite a bit there to grind, but it's not all bad, okay? I know sometimes I like to use the word grind, and I think a lot of people, it has a negative connotation. However, for me personally, I actually use the term grind to explain what it is, and it's something that I enjoy in the majority of games. I don't mean to use it in a negative way whatsoever, but the grind in Eternal Edge is killing monsters, doing events, and getting stronger gear to increase your stats, right? So, aside from the Eternal Essence, the other way to make your character stronger and progress is equipping these items that you can gather through crafting. You can also find them as drops, and you can also find them as rewards for completing events. The crafting is a little bit interesting. You can craft some legendary items based on specific items they have to find, I think, from events. I don't want to spoil too much, but overall progression is there. It's not as much as I would like to see. There's no skill trees, there's no passive skills, or there's nothing like that. There's only 3 item slots. You have your weapon, shield, and armor. And if you're using a two-handed weapon, that's even further limited by just your weapon and one piece of armor. There's only one armor slot. So it's pretty limited, really, when it comes to customizing your character. And, you know, I think that's okay for this type of game. It's not something that I'm going to complain about or anything. But of course, you know, skill trees would have been really freaking sweet to see. Anyway, that's basically how progression works in Eternal Edge. The next part I want to talk about, and I like to save this for last because best for last, and that is combat. In every RPG, the number one thing I look for is combat, and the combat needs to be fun and engaging. And I would say Eternal Edge does strive for that. I don't know if they entirely accomplish that that goal of being super engaging. It is quite fun to swing your sword and, you know, kind of figure out how to dodge stuff, but it's really not anything too advanced. You lock on, you swing your sword. If you need to, you can back up and shoot them with an arrow. There's no like combos or anything really crazy like that. The combat is, well, it's kind of plain to be honest, but it's not bad. It's enjoyable, I guess. It's nothing that I would brag about or like tell you must play it. Like the combat's super great because that would just be a lie. But anyway, I don't really have much else to say about the combat other than it's okay. It's there and it's all right. It's not bad. So going into my final closing thoughts on Eternal Edge, I want to point out I probably should have done this at the beginning of the video, but hey, thanks for sticking around. I did play the majority of the game with a Xbox controller. That is the recommended way to play. If you decide to go keyboard and mouse, which I did for the first like 30 minutes, you're going to notice that a lot of the keybinds and tooltips are for controllers. So you're not actually going to know what button to use until you just kind of figure it out for yourself. But anyway, with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about if I think this game's worth your money. So basically the game's $14.99 on Steam. I think for that price, if you just want a Zelda-like to maybe play 20, maybe 30 hours with an okay story, average combat, and an okay progression system, I guess I could recommend it for $14.99. It might be a little bit on the high side, but it really just depends on your budget, right? I think probably the number one thing of the game for me personally would be loot and looking at the stats on the loot. Other than that, the world and story was kind of cool. Anyway, I know this review was not super in depth, but there's not really a lot to review here, to be honest with you. It's another Zelda-like game that has a few interesting things, which is your events and your eternal essences. Other than that, it's basically everything that I think you would expect, and for $14.99 you could get a good functioning Zelda-like RPG to enjoy for at least 20 to 30 hours, like I said. That's going to wrap up this Eternal Edge Plus video game review. I can't thank you guys enough for watching this, and hopefully you got the information you needed to help you deciding if this game is worth your time and money or not. If you enjoy this video and all the content on the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. It means so much to me. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.